Okay, so we're back, and this time we're not doing another pairing. We've now finished the series, although we haven't technically finished, but we have finished for all the viewers watching. Um, so this is just sort of a recap. We're going to do the draw at the end as well. We're just going to have a bit of a shortish discussion, or I suppose we'll see how long it takes us. But we'll just have a bit of a recap of what we thought of the series, any memorable moments, any memorable finals, anything that we would change moving forward, and then we'll bring up the draw. So shall we just kick it off?
I hope you're overlaying like magic moments as the music over the background of this. It's like as we start to reminisce, and slowly looking off into the thoughts.
Do you like the Ben Affleck interview where I think he just like zones out and it just zooms slowly into his face and he's just there staring into nothing. So let's start with you, Luke. Anything? What was your most general thoughts, I suppose, about the 16? I mean, we've been at it for 4 months, so it's been a long time.
About what we've done so far, or about the 16?
About just the entire all the series so far.
Everything we've done so far. Everything, yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything we've done so far.
We've definitely done some things.
Body shop.
The big miss for you.
The big miss of this tournament. I don't know if it'd have won its bracket. No. I imagine if you guys didn't put it in, then it's not going to win its bracket. But oh my god, that is one of the best cards in the game.
It was quite a weakish winner, wasn't it? It was Hair Doctor that won it, so it maybe could have got to the final potentially.
Well, not while I'm in this tournament, it wouldn't have.
I think you've let your biases get the better of you on the old Body Shop. I think it's become such a big thing within our group now that there's no coming back from it. That was one of the most memorable moments for me. There was 2 or 3 others that I felt a little bit like I was up against it with, but I know a few of the guys in the comments back me up on certainly a lot of them. Monarch Gate, that was another big element for me. Shall we consider the cards with the other cards or not? Being the debate within that. I think first video we did of this, I enjoyed how our standards for what makes a good card changed so dramatically between
in that same video, wasn't it? It was just in the same video.
Yeah. Okay,
well, that was the first one doing it, though.
Okay, but this was not good within its faction, so we flip flopped very. But yeah, I think we found our feet. I realized going through them how many because I'm so heavily locked in on playing the ones that I enjoy. I realized how many I'm missing out on. I think I have played most of the sets, but I think I'm very quick to go, okay, that pairing didn't work, so I'll dismiss a certain faction. I think we do get sucked into our friendship group of wanting to win. So it may be that we don't necessarily pick something new or something fun. We're trying to pick something good. And I think that's something I'll try and change in the future and just experiment a bit more with different factions and combinations. There were loads of factions that had cards in that I just thought, wow, that's a really good card. And I'd like to play and experience a few more of them. I've got a few ideas. I enjoyed your video the other day on Mounties Werewolves on Jim's Smash Up channel. I thought that was very good and just something that it wouldn't even come across my mind to play 2 factions that almost play the opposite, succeeding the opposite ends of the game state. It's more about I'm not thinking that deep into my pairing, so that's something I'd like to improve on.
Yeah. What about you, Lee?
Yeah, do you know, it's been interesting. I actually went back and watched a little bit of that first video the other day, just in sort of a little bit of preparation for this discussion. And Luke is absolutely correct. In that one video, my opinion goes completely flip-flops in every single but basically every time we discuss the same card again, I've got a different idea or the opposite idea as to what I had in the first place. So it's interesting to see how we've kind of, and I think somebody commented the other day, actually, our personalities are starting to become a little bit more obvious, and you can almost predict what each of us are going to pick before we all pick it, even though we do try to surprise each other every now and again. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed that kind of reflection on where we all kind of sit and how we all kind of think in terms of it. It is a little bit political almost. You know, Luke's very one side, Mark's very other side, and I'm kind of in the middle, I think, on most of the cases on that. And as long as it messes with Luke's game plan, I'm usually game with it. So, yeah, I think my favorite discussion was around There Goes Tokyo. I think that was my favorite episode to film.
There Goes Tokyo versus
interesting. That was my word.
Critter Champion, wasn't it?
It's weird.
I do remember that one, because we spent maybe half an hour on Critter Champion versus There Goes Tokyo, and then the final was about 2 minutes. It was very quick.
Everything had been said by then. Everything had been said. Yeah, whether or not the best card won, I think is still, jury's out. I still think in terms of the best, and again, the clarifications that I've been able to come up with, I think, on my own little nuances as the series have gone on. I think my favorite thing has been when I'm saying things like, well, Monarch Gate, that became a thing that I became almost famous for, and discussing things that I think are rubbish, not because they are actually rubbish, but just because I think they're rubbish, and therefore in my head they are rubbish. But the thing for me was what Luke was talking about, and I think it makes a massive. I know when we've played in the past, I remember we were trying to implement randomizers and stuff because we are desperately stuck in our own little ways sometimes, and it's very difficult to pick a faction that we wouldn't normally otherwise have picked. And I know there's a couple of factions we've come across where I'm desperate to actually try them. Elder Things, for one, I can't wait to try a really completely different to anything I would normally play faction like Elder Things. And the other one that I really, really like the look of was Kung Fu Fighters. And I even went so much as to try to plan what I would pair that with, and try and play like some sort of kung fu fighting dinosaurs as a weird little combo of various different things. So, yeah, the more and more we talk about it, the more and more I start thinking, man, there's some really great factions in this game, apart from the most recent expansion, and not including Marvel. But that's been my big thing for me. I've also really enjoyed. There's been a couple of episodes. Well, I've enjoyed filming all of the episodes. I think, like my favorite was Big in Japan, but I think one of my other favorites was I can't remember the name of I remember the Charger bots, the Changer bots.
Yeah.
Solar Shout.
Yeah, that was a really interesting video to film, because when we were discussing it in the sort of preview before we all got together to film it, we were talking about how we were really not really looking forward to that set because there's all sorts of cards that we didn't really care about. And I think one of the things that I really enjoyed that came out of that was that we basically agreed on almost every single, it might have been out on every single card. And I was given a different perspective as we were talking through it, where I think it was you, Mark, compared Leader 2 to essentially a buffed up version of the Wizards, the Archmage.
Solar Shout.
Sorry. Yeah, I said Leader 2. I meant Solar Shout. I was looking at in my head. I had Solar Shout and said Leader 2 for So and he went on to win in the end. And actually, it was nice that we were able to kind of correct what I think was perhaps a mistake from the first video, where Archmage should probably have gone further, but because he's more powerful and slightly is a better version of Archmage, he was able to do that. So, but I mean, we'll always disagree on lots of different things. As much as we do agree on some things, we also do disagree on probably an equal number. But it was nice to film quite contrasting videos. When you look at the two differences there, we had a quite polarizing discussion on whether or not There Goes Tokyo should have won, and then quite a very nice, agreeable discussion on the fact that Solar Shout was a much better option in that faction. So that was probably two of my favorite moments throughout the series.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I've really enjoyed doing it as well. It's been great to have you both on and get the different perspectives on cards and sets. I was just thinking about all the various weeks we've done, and I think where we've not necessarily had particularly strong opinions on one card, like one favorite card that we want to see win, we've had like really, I wouldn't say the other ones have been worse, but we've had more kind of open, engaging discussion on, because when no one has a favorite, you genuinely can be swayed either way as to which card you want to go through. And I think the Culture Shock one, where we were talking about Wayfinder and Sun Tattoo and things like that, where we don't really have a favorite between the two. So it is just genuinely who can make the most compelling argument for a card. And I think that's where we get the best or like most stimulating discussion on some of these. Whereas thinking back to some of them, like the There Goes Tokyo one, Luke absolutely did not want There Goes Tokyo to win. You wanted There Goes Tokyo to win, and it created this almost kind of like, sort of a gridlock kind of situation, really. So I think that's where we've got 3 people. Obviously, we can come down on one side or the other and break those sort of ties. But for me, I think the biggest revelation for me, and you touched on it there with, like Minions of Cthulhu and Elder Things and things like that, were the sets that I don't enjoy playing as much. So Obligatory Cthulhu, Munchkin, even Big in Japan, had some really interesting cards that I'd completely sort of overlooked. And the big one for me is Eternal Hero. That is such a good card, but it's a card that I'd almost never, I think I've maybe seen it once before. So it's completely out of my memory, because it's in Munchkin, because it's in Warriors, because you use monsters and you never play with them. It's such a good card, and there are so many really interesting cards and sort of not necessarily play styles, but a few cards that interact well with each other in those factions and those sets, and I kind of just overlooked them. So it was a bit of an eye opener for me from that perspective as well. So I think I really enjoyed looking at some of the cards that I would never pick out of the box to play with at all.
Yeah, and I think another thing for me was the amount of points that were made about cards or how they interact with other cards or things that I never even had on my radar. Particularly different. I think you, Mark, have such a different outlook to me and Lee in terms of how we play, that there was regular points that you were making that I hadn't even considered that as a mechanic or a feature or a positive of that card. Those moments for me were really enjoyable because it just showed how much depth there is to this game, and you can make it into, you can go so deep on so many cards in so many different ways, and it's easy just to throw down as many robots as you can, but there's so many cards that do so many different varied things that it was nice to listen to some of your points that would have never even crossed my mind.
Yeah, I'll echo that exact same thing. I can sometimes be blinkered in my own way of, almost crash bang wallop some sort of. This is how I want to do it. This is how I want to play my game, and it is always really nice to listen to. Well, both of you actually, in the way that you both think about how the game kind of fits together and how you actually smash the cards up and how the factions kind of work. It's what Luke's mentioned earlier on the video that you did on Jim's channel. I really did enjoy watching, and there's been a couple more that have been on since that I've really enjoyed watching as well. If anybody in the comments or anybody watching has not seen it, they should definitely get over and have a look, because it's a really cool little series about combinations that you would never normally think of putting together, and it's a really nice, again, just a different way of thinking about the game, and it does kind of bring it to, because it's such a good game. I wish more people played it so that we could get more and more out of it. But I know we were literally just talking before we started filming about trying to get a date together, and I know we're looking at trying to get together to play some lots of games, but Smash will be in there. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the next one. It was Bear Cavalry, Incas, and Incas are my favorite faction. I never even thought to pair them with Bear Cavalry, but I can see the synergies that he'd kind of laid out in the video, and I found that a really interesting one to watch. Basically, I think it's had we not done this, and had I just said, Luke and Lee pick one card from each expansion as the best card in the expansion, we would have ended up with 3 quite different lists, I would think. And I think because we've had to do it together, we've ended up with more of a balanced list, I think, between the three of us. So we maybe ended up with some that we would have wanted to put forward, some that you would have wanted to put forward, and some that Luke would have wanted to put forward. And we've ended up with a bit of a hybrid list where we've ended up, I suppose, with a more balanced list in terms of, rather than just if we did it all individual, we've had very different picks and suggestions.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's made me realize that there's a lot of cards that we see very differently, and the fact that we could have a list that my number one wasn't even on either of your 2 lists within that faction.
Yeah,
Out of the 3 cards, just shows how, if you want to play a game a certain style, or you like playing a certain style, it can be the exact opposite to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that you would change then from how we've done this?
Yes,
I've got one thing that I would change, but I'm interested to hear what you guys would
see if you can guess what my thing to change would be.
Is it the Body Shop would have made it?
It's the Body Shop would have made it in.
The Body
You've
Shop
got
would
to-
never win.
You've got to be careful of asking me questions where I can mention Body Shop.
Uber Serum is the card that makes Body Shop work.
Well, that's it. We
Let-
sort of had we did sort of have this discussion in the culture shop one because we had Wayfinder and Sun Tattoo, and we said, well, Wayfinder's the engine and Sun Tattoo's the payoff, and it's the same thing. Uber Serum is the engine and Body Shop is the payoff. So it's like, which one is the better card?
All I'm hearing is I should play Mad Scientists with Polynesian Voyager. That's all I'm hearing.
Yeah, that would be a good combo.
Imagine
Crack on.
Wayfinder with Uber Serum,
Uber
Body
Serum.
Shop, tattoos everywhere.
That would be strong.
So I don't think I would necessarily change the way we did it as such. Even though I did feel a bit like I was on the receiving end of some two for one voting. I don't think I would change it. I think I enjoyed the arguments as much as I enjoyed agreeing.
You know, I think the one thing that I would probably change, and it is only a small thing, but I now feel like I've got my own, I don't want to say scientific method because it's definitely not scientific, but I've got my own kind of scientific method for choosing how I want a card to be able to progress throughout a tournament that we're discussing. So I think if I was to go back and look at some of the earlier videos that we did, I don't think I'd necessarily figured out my own processes. I know you've documented almost yours, Mark, when you've responded to a few comments in the comment sections on several different videos where you've been talking about almost your weighting for how much you value a certain aspect of a card that we've been discussing. And I know the Monarch Gates sort of saga that kind of continued throughout, but that for me was what allowed me to really characterize, I think, what I put in terms of my priority list for how I judge whether a card should go through based on various different parameters. So I think I would have maybe liked to have done a few of these discussions off cam first to maybe talk through them, but then I would have taken away from the fact that we were learning this as we were going. And so I'd never actually suggest it as a change, but I do think that now I've got a much better process going into the finals, going into the big discussions. And I am quite looking forward to being able to apply that and see what we could kind of do. But yeah, whilst I do like ganging up on Luke sometimes, it is always quite nice to agree every now and again as well.
I agree with you. I would. We have definitely refined our criteria for what is a good and bad card.
Yeah, for me, the one minor one I'd probably go back and change Core Set, because Core Set, I just came up with a list of cards. We didn't do a three-way voting on it.
Yeah, that's
and we didn't
true.
even do it so that it was balanced, so that we had, because how I've changed it or how we've refined it going forward is that we've had one card from each faction on one side, one card from each faction on the other side, and then the first seed's always against the second seed and so on. So we've had a more balanced tournament structure, but that wasn't for Core Set. So
You broke up.
I have no idea what you just said there. Like, it was just I was looking at Luke waiting for him to react. Thinking,
All right.
It's just me, I'll stay quiet.
I've just had a message from Zoom to pop up to say my connection's unstable. Can you hear me now?
That's better, yeah.
We lost maybe the last minute of what you were saying.
I've not. You said Core Set and then you disappeared.
All right, well,
you picked the pairings for the Core Set.
Yeah, so
they weren't balanced seedings.
Yeah, so a minor thing I'd change for Core Set would be that we'd because we changed it since so that we had one card from each faction on each side, and then they played a first seed, played a second seed, and then you guys didn't have a say on the Core Set one, so I'd probably go back and change that as a minor one. But for me, I think we got there in the end, but we actually didn't have any kind of way of assessing the voting and how we were doing it, did we? Because we eventually came to a system where we each put in 3, and then we had like a ranking of what beats what, so like a 1 and a 2 beats, that sort of thing. So we kind of eventually came to that, but we didn't have that early on in the days.
That would have been better. A little paddle system. Vote for Monarch. Vote for anything other than Monarch. Yeah,
yes,
that's paddle system or something like that would be quite nice. Would have been fun. I don't know. There's all sorts of stuff you could have changed, isn't there, with hindsight? But I think you're right. Actually, it would have been interesting to. Maybe it's worth reseeding Core Set and just as a one-off, not as to affect the tournament, but just curiously to see how it would go.
I don't feel like when we did the list there was anything glaringly missing, and certainly as we get through the video, sort of realised if it's not going to win, then there's not as much point in being in there. But
I agree.
so
Archmage should have won.
Yeah, I think core set was quite cut and dry, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right.
There are good cards and there are bad cards in core set, and I think it's quite cut and dry between the two.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing we learned as well was we did It's Your Fault, didn't we? We did 16 cards for It's Your Fault, but in reality, we made the correct decision when doing Culture Shock by just doing it as 8 cards rather than 16 cards, because we put a lot of cards through then that we just wanted to have representation on rather than actually genuinely having a chance of winning it. So I think we made the right call on the second lot of 5 faction expansions.
I might go back and change that we put any superheroes through at all, because I don't think any of them deserve to be
Yeah,
there.
we put we put Malbana Citizen in as number 1, and we put in Mind Lady as number 2. I think it was.
Mind
or
Lady's
the other way
good.
around.
I think
Yeah,
Mind Lady's
Mild Citizen's my favorite card.
Here's a question for you actually. What was your favorite thumbnail from the series?
Ooh.
Talking about Malbana Citizen, that was the one that started it all off.
It might have been the princesses. The princesses one was quite good.
Yeah, I did enjoy that one.
I enjoyed the princesses one.
I quite like I did quite like the ability
you should have them side by
one.
side, Mark. You should have them side by side now. We could be judging them.
In fact, maybe I don't know if you can see can you see my folder when I'm looking at my folder? I don't know whether that's something. No, I might just be recording Zoom. I quite like the in plain sight obligatory Cthulhu one where it was me in the middle and Luke was like, one of you was doing that.
Yeah. That was a good fight.
I quite like that one as well.
You're right. My favourites were the ones where we were all on there at the same time. I think that was good fun. And I love that you asked us to send a couple of random headshots together, and I think you used them once and then forced us to make a specific face for every single one that you wanted us to do.
Yeah, so, it kind of developed over time, but I enjoyed that. I enjoed that as that was
silly.
It was funny. Yeah, it was silly.
I really enjoyed the kaiju one where it's me punching you in the face.
Oh yeah, I go like that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the princesses one where Lee's yawning with his hand through the thing, and we'd all done specific poses. Snow White has a beard and everything. And then I really like the "Oops, You Did It Again" one where it is Lee thinking it's playing your own King Rex, and then it says playing someone else's King Rex, and he's got the Valkyrie headset.
Yeah,
I think you did well on those. Yeah, that was good.
Right, have you got anything else you want to mention, or should I bring up the champion and champions?
No, bring up the champions.
Yeah,
bring up the champions.
Let's do the draw.
Just before we do the draw, can you see that now?
Bringing Body Shop back in.
No, we'll just go on the runners up tab for the ones that got away. And
the ones that got away.
I'll just move these down just in case people can't see them, because I think we're going to be on the right hand side of the screen.
Yeah, I was going to say I'll move you out of the way because I couldn't see, but that's better.
So, is there anything on there that you think was a big miss that should have gone through?
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton.
I don't think it was a miss.
It was a close call.
I don't think it was a miss, but Will Wheaton's a great card. A really great card. I know Felicia Day won, didn't she? So I know Will Wheaton's a great. I mean, Felicia Day's a great card, but Will Wheaton's a great card and better than some of the other winners that we had. If we were to look at going back to what we've got, actually, some of the winners of the individual sets that we've got, and these obviously aren't the rules, and obviously what we're going forward with is what won, but there's easily some cards that you'd be able to erase from the winning circle and replace them with one or two of the cards from here.
Yeah.
What I tell you on things that we really like, I really enjoy looking at things like Kappa Roja. I'd never even really considered Lucadors. That was another set that I really want to play. I can't wait to get together and get a really good pairing faction for the Lucadors. And I think every time we've played with that expansion, I know when we first got it, we played quite a few games, didn't we, Luke? So, but I think I played mostly with Musketeers because Musketeers is really my bag. But the setup actions and stuff that kind of come with that, I think that was really cool. So it's not necessarily a card that should have won, but it certainly it opened my eyes to how powerful it actually is, and the simple fact that it was better than the King Minion in its own faction, sort of thing. I think that was a really a powerful thing. Most recently, when Sun Tattoo's a really, really good card as well, that could easily have won over Wayfinder. Dancing King's an interesting one because I like to pair the Disco Dancers with the Dinos, and that allows you to play like a Dancing King Rex combo, a double King Rex, and anytime you can get two kings out, that's the Dancing King Rex. It's the King squared phenomena. That's what you want. And to me, that's that's a really good thing as well. But I mean, there's some great cards on there, really, isn't there? When you look at some of the cards that are on there, there's some really great cards, and then there's some not great cards on there.
Yeah, there are
There's
some great cards, and there are some cards that are significantly worse than. And as you say, there are some cards on here that could easily beat out other first seeds, and there are some cards that are second seeds on here that shouldn't really. They're significantly worse than the other second seeds. So there's a real mix. But I think we've got, this could in theory be another top 16 best cards in Smash Up list. But, these are all edged out by what we thought were better cards.
And if the comment section is to be believed, actually, a few of these cards should have won.
Mm.
And to be honest, I don't disagree with some of the statements that were being made as well. And I think it was always really nice to read back some of the, and I have read pretty much every comment that people put on the video as well. I'm sure you guys have as well. But it was really interesting to listen to other people's perspectives on a lot of these. And again, in what we were just saying in our reflections bit, talking about how other people think about things. Actually, there's a lot of different ways to pair these things up to make them absolutely wonderful cards. So yeah, it is always interesting.
Luke?
The interesting thing for me in this is consideration is how many of these are one copy. So all your King minions, obviously, Full Sail's one copy, We Will Rock You's one copy, Clever Distractions one copy, Super Futures one, Will Wheaton's one, Mimics 3, is it?
Mimics 3, yeah.
Yeah. Kappa Rock 2.
Yep, Sun Tattoo 2.
Yeah. So within these, if these are in theory the second best cards within their expansion, anything that gets 3 copies of that must or 2 copies must be fairly strong by proxy a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there's some good cards in there.
There's some great cards.
It's gonna be interesting when you put the main ones up, the winners up as a group. Looking at those, how good they are, it's going to be interesting to see the winners.
The thing that makes me laugh looking at this list is that most of these cards are the one that Luke voted for.
Oh yeah, it looks good, doesn't it? I sat here thinking Full Sail, yeah, that's great. Loon Captain, I voted for that. Mimic, yeah, definitely voted for that. Yeah. You call that archaeology? Yeah, that was mine. I like Santa too. Odysseus, yeah, I love the Greeks. I voted for a lot of these.
I was gonna mention that, but actually you voted for Great Worm. It was me who was. It was me going for Odysseus. Yeah, that's one I was going to mention. Is I think Odysseus is the big miss from the Champion of Champions. I think it's such a good card, such an engine.
I think the problem is we're basically ranking it back by expansion. But if you if you ended up with if you made a list of ignoring what expansions they are, the top 16 best cards in the game, I think some of these would be in there. They'd beat out some of the winners from other expansions.
Yeah.
So I think that's the tricky thing within this is your factors are limited to based on the way they produce the cards. If we were doing a straight up top 16 best cards in the game, we potentially would have ignored those parameters. But I think we're not doing a top 16 best card in the game. We're doing which is the best one. So
exactly, yeah.
However you order it, it's almost a bit irrelevant because we're going to end up with one. I don't know how we're possibly going to end up deciding on one card. I'd struggle to pick between these runners up, to be honest. It's going to be very difficult.
Well, talking about that, should we move on to the actual draw now then?
Let's do what everyone's here to see.
Yeah. So as you can see, we've got the cards numbered 1 to 16. So what we'll do is we'll just say, Lee, if you give me a number, and then Luke, you give me a number, and that'll be the first pairing up in the top left, and we'll just go through like that. So over to you then, Lee. Which number do you want first?
It should be worth noting that neither me nor Luke know which cards are underneath the numbers.
Yes.
Mark has completely randomised this, so it is
You have
there
no
is as
idea
much
what's gonna
as-
be paired.
I literally,
Yeah.
genuinely have no clue what's going to be paired here. I'm going to go with my my lucky number 7 to start off
And
with.
I have added Body Shot behind one of these cards as well.
Just got
So number-
very interesting.
Number 7 is Time Warp,
Number 7 is Time Warp.
the first card to be drawn. Luke
Number 10.
up against number 10. Chicken Soup,
Ooh,
the one that you
interesting.
forgot we'd put through.
Oh. This is the one that you didn't think neither me nor Luke were clever enough to put through, isn't it?
Ah, yes,
The one.
that.
I remember that discussion. Do you remember that discussion, Luke?
Put that in the highlights package.
Yeah.
Favorite moments.
We'll go with number 1, first the worst.
Number 1, Hair Doctor.
Well, it is. First is the
Ooh.
worst. The worst card we put through.
Hair Doctor.
Doctor.
I will put that with number 11 then. All the ones, 1 or 2,
Number
1.
1. Okay.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
Ooh,
Oh.
our big favourite for the final.
Easy-
Oh,
We've got
goodbye,
Eliza.
Eliza. Easy,
Easy
first
first
round.
win for Hair
Easy
Doctor.
first win. Oh, nice.
I wish you hadn't just said that thing about Hair Doctor being the worst card in
Oh,
the
it's
con.
so bad as well. It's so
I've
bad.
got that on
That's such an
record.
easy pairing. That's such an easy pairing. Right, number 5, please.
Number 5. Solar Shout.
Solar Shout. So wizardy.
I'll take number 15, 15.
15.
I like what you're doing, Luke. I like what you're doing.
Oh, up against Eternal Hero.
Ooh, it's
That's going to be
pretty easy win for Eternal Hero. I
Spoilers.
like
Let's stop with the spoilers, everybody.
number 2. Number 2.
number 2. Dragon Warrior.
Everybody wants kung fu fighting.
Luke.
I'll take number 12, 12.
Yeah, I knew you would.
I'll stop doing that now.
Oh, up against Yokozuna.
Ooh.
Ooh, big fight.
We've got some
Battle
big.
of the Fighters.
That's a really interesting pair. That's going to be a difficult one, actually.
So that's a very solid side of the draw, isn't it? Really, very
Yeah.
solid indeed. Okay, Luke.
I would like number 9, please.
Get the one over on this end. Great Worm.
There he is. There he
One
is.
that edged out Odysseus.
Heavy favourite.
Up against.
6.
I knew you'd do that. Upside down 9. Number 6.
Oh,
Oh,
Look at it. up
Yes.
against. There
Get
goes
that.
Tokyo.
Yeah,
Get rid of
okie
that. Get rid of that bad boy early.
That is going to be a shame for Great Worm. Number 16, please.
Number
Oh,
16.
God.
The Professor.
Ooh.
He's going to go just in behind number 8. What next, Luke?
8.
Get rid
Just
of
get it
8.
out of the way. Oh, easy Valkyrie round. Easy
Your friend of
Valkyrie
mine,
round.
Valkyrie.
Why is the right hand side of the card so much bigger than the left hand side of the cards, Mark?
Why is the right hand side of the card?
All the cards
dra-
on the
the
right are
draw.
much bigger.
All right.
Yeah, they're not small enough, Mark. I don't like it. Number 13, please.
So we've got number 13 and number 3 and number 14 and number 4 left, eh?
Overgrowth.
Spoilers.
Number 4. Number 14.
Number 14.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Oh, up against. Well, it was Felicia Day. Let's get that over here. I'm going to put you guys over on the right hand side just so I can see what I'm doing.
It's going to be
I'll
a
sort out the
difficult
sizing after this.
discussion.
Okay.
I'll go
That
with.
leaves-
What do you reckon, Luke? Number 3 or number 4?
Number 3.
I'll take number 4.
Number 4. One of the more recent editions, the Wayfinder.
Lee, without.
I was going to say
wait,
for
wait,
£1. For £1,
Yeah.
what is
What?
the last card?
I think I know what
It's
it is. Do you know what it is?
Invader, it's
Yeah.
Invader.
Ah,
Invader.
yes, left till the end. There you are.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I thought
Yeah.
that. I thought name it, and then I thought, oh, it's glaringly obvious. When I've actually sat and thought about it.
Right, is there anything that stands out to you immediately off of the page here?
The 5 and 6, the bottom left pairing, the Dragon Warrior and the Yokozuna is going to be a really good discussion.
Oh yeah.
I also think Overgrowth and Felicia Day is going to be an interesting discussion because I've got a real soft spot for Overgrowth.
Luke, anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, Great Worm versus There Goes Tokyo. Two very negative cards in their play style.
In their own rights, yeah.
Yeah,
that's an interesting point. Actually, that's going to be a real big part of the discussion, isn't it? Because we're essentially they're probably the most. Well, they are two of the most negative cards apart from Valkyrie, I guess. But they're two of the most directly negative cards that are on the field, and it's going to be really interesting because one of them is going out.
I think
really early on.
I think some of them have got much easier pairings than others. I think just looking at I won't say which ones, but just on the face of it, some of them I feel have got almost walkovers compared to some of the others. I think the toughest pairing for me is going to be Invader versus Eliza. I think that's probably going to be the toughest one for me to figure out.
What you mean? What in the final? You're gonna have to beat that. You're gonna have to beat that out. Ain't no way Eliza's getting to the final. I'll tell you
Eliza's not going to get out of the bracket. She's probably going to beat Hair Doctor. Well, maybe. I don't know yet. I'll see how.
It's interesting. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 minions. So it's a minion heavy. If anyone betting out there, minions might have the advantage in terms of minions.
So we've got like 15 seconds left. It's going to cut us off in a second. Should we just wrap this up and then we'll move on to the next one?
Well, we'll jump onto the other one and finish this off, won't we? I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I'll see you in a second.
Radio.
I know we were just talking about the pairings and the matchups, but if you've got nothing, if either you've got nothing else you want to mention, we'll just wrap this one up and go to the next. Go to the next video.
I think.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the public are going to decide on some of these because I know that was the plan, was it, Mark?
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is there'll be another video following this one, which will be a very short video just explaining how to get involved. But we'd really like to hear from you, the community, in terms of what you think. So I'll have this little survey up. It'll have all the first round pairings. You can vote for which card you think is the better card. And then we'll use that to break any ties basically, but we'll also use it to just to see who is more in line with the community and as well just to see which way the community vote compared to how we decide to go with it. So it'll be really interesting to see what people think in terms of or how in tune we are with the community and things like that, and who reckons they're the voice of the people. I'm sure Luke is probably branding himself as the voice of the people.
Otherwise known as wrong.
Against the tyrants, the oppression of you two against me and my body shop agenda.
Well, we're gonna have David for the champions, so there's gonna be 4 of us. So there's a realistic possibility that there will be ties. So having the community voting will help to break any of those ties. So it'll be a nice clean way of doing it if we are, deadlocked as to which one we think should go through. And then we'll do it again. So we'll do all the first round pairings, and then we'll do the polling again, and then we'll do the quarters, semis, and final. Should be a good way of doing it. Because as you say, I've really enjoyed hearing what people have to say in the comments. So it'll be really good to get kind of direct involvement as well.
Nice to get some really lovely comments left on that last video as well. There was some genuinely heartwarming stuff. It's nice to get some positive feedback.
I agree.
Okay, great. Well, prior to the Champion of Champions, we're going to be out with another video. We're going to look at the worst card in Smash Up as a nice little interval, and just to help with me doing the polling, it gives us some time for people to respond. So you'll see that first, and then you'll see the first rounds of the Champion of Champions in a couple of weeks' time. So until then, thank you very much for watching the recap, and we'll see you on the next one.